Good afternoon, everyone, and we welcome you to this regularly scheduled meeting of the Friendswood Downtown Economic Development Corporation. It is Tuesday, January the 10th, 2023. That's the first time I've said that officially. And it is 4 o'clock, and we are meeting in City Council chambers. It's my privilege to call this meeting to order, and we have on the dais Mr. Johnson, Mr. Hill, Mr. Todd, Mr. Marks, and Dr. McGowan, and myself, Rebecca Hillenberg. McGinnis. You know who Don McGowan? Oh, we'll go into that later. He's a very good guy. Anyway, Dr. McGinnis, and thank you, Mr. Hill, for keeping me straight. We do have a quorum and are ready to proceed with number 2, which is public communications. This is the opportunity for any members of the public to please come forward and give your thoughts and ideas to the corporation. Seeing no one and hearing no one, we're going to proceed to number 3, which are the approval of the minutes. And these are the minutes for the October the 11th meeting. We received those via email. Any comments, questions, or concerns? I will comment they were very thorough, thank you. Any recommendations in regards to a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Are there any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right. Oh, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Thank you. It is unanimous. I apologize for that, guys. It's just who I am. 4A is a business item, and it is considered, we get the opportunity to see the proposal for the conceptual plan for the Stevens Park parking lot. Now, just to let you know, KFB has not seen this yet. Due to calendar dates and one thing or another, they will see it more at the end of the month. But since we were scheduled for today, we get to see it first. No action is required. We are just getting the opportunity to see it. And Stephen?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Happy New Year to everyone. Glad to see everybody back. Mr. Cox couldn't make it. He's traveling today, just to let the group know. I do want to just give a brief rundown for item 4. This is to consider making a recommendation for the Stevenson Park parking lot next door, the old Fire Station 1 site. It does not necessarily mean a recommendation has to be made, seeing that KFB has not seen it yet. But just a brief history, you will recall back in June of 2022, way back in June, this group approved a funding request from Keep Friendswood Beautiful to fund the architectural services of Half & Associates. There was a bunch of citizen engagement. Mostly there was 3 town halls that were held at the public library, along with some online surveys. Very thorough, very good input from citizens. And of that input, there was 3 concepts that were created. And Half & Associates, Casey is here with Half & Associates to provide us a brief update, a rundown of those concepts that were created. And I'll turn it over to Casey. If he gives me 1 second, I will bring up their presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Casey.
I'll quickly go through some of the process to kind of explain how we got to some of the decision making that we made for the concepts. I don't want to bore you with all the details, though. This is my beautiful team. So I am Casey Collins, landscape architect with Half Associates. We are a multidisciplinary firm headquartered out of Richardson, Texas. Our Houston office is off of Dairy Ashford and I-10. This is the team that helped me make this all possible. Unfortunately, they only sat my ugly face to present this to you. So the next slide, as Stephen mentioned, we had 3 public engagement meetings. The engagement meetings included us providing a site analysis for Stevenson Park parking lot, as well as some image boards of potential programming for the park. The intent was for members of the community to come place a dot, which you see some of the yellow dots on those images, for the programming and the site elements that they favored the most. And we compiled all that information and included that into the concepts. So our first engagement meeting was September 20th. There was an overwhelming desire to maintain a lot of the existing parking that's out there at Stevenson Park. We also received some feedback in wanting to enhance that parking with permeable pavers potentially and landscape plantings. But definitely the overwhelming desire was to not remove parking. The next meeting we had, Stephen, was October 25th. We had approximately 30 community members. Myself and Lewis on my team went to the high school, Friendswood High School, and engaged them on sort of what we do as planners and designers. And we actually had some high school students come out and share some of their thoughts as well. Some of the positive feedback we received from that presentation, outdoor dining, again, parking is a premium, improving the restroom facility as well. And then we also brought up some concerns over the accessibility and ADA. Our final public engagement meeting occurred November 29th. That was for us to compile all the input that we had received and present the concepts. So if you could hit the slide for me, please. We compiled the information, all the input that we had received. You can see the top three desired amenities were enhanced parking, that received 36 votes. Pavilion with restrooms received 27, and outdoor dining received 25. Additional amenities that we noticed were the covered parking for farmers market events and shaded parking areas. So during this meeting on November 29th, we presented the three concepts that our office developed, which we'll go ahead and go into next. So we have concept A through C. A is the least intense of the three concepts, and it gradually gets more and more intense for the site. And so a big goal of ours was to try to preserve as many of the parking spaces, but also add some semblance of park space. And so for this concept, we really kind of view this as a gateway or a main entry into the park. You can see we've maintained a lot of the parking along the southern part of the site. We're proposing to replace the open ditch with a covered piped drainage and use that space for additional surface parking. So as you enter from Friendswood Drive into the site, that sort of, it's noted by, I think, letter F, if I can see that properly. That serves as a pedestrian drop-off, but also serves as a staging area for food trucks because outdoor dining was listed as an amenity that people wanted to see. The idea being then that we'd have covered outdoor dining with shade structures. You can see from the pictures on the bottom left, we're depicting what a shade structure might look like with some outdoor dining. Those large spheres represent pedestrian refuge safe area. It'd be more of a bollard so that all of this could be at grade to address the ADA concerns. In the center of that plaza space, we're introducing a water feature. The idea to kind of activate, energize that space, provide a little bit of background noise. Behind the shade structures, we're proposing a bosque of trees, just a grove, and we're changing the paving to more of a crushed granite. Be easier for outdoor dining if you have picnic tables. So the big idea here is to really kind of serve as that gateway, that entrance into the park. Behind the grove of trees in the picnic area, you'll see at the top left the existing restroom pavilion. We're proposing to keep restroom building. We're proposing to keep that building intact and just provide enhancements to the structure, update the finishes, the fixtures. Right on center with the water feature, we're proposing a garden atrium building, a structure that kind of plays off the existing botanic garden that you see. It's sort of starting from Keep Friendswood Beautiful, and then play off of that and mirror the garden to the right-hand side. Overall, we did a real rough magnitude of cost. We think that this is within the range plus or minus 3.4 million in terms of construction costs. That did include a 20% contingency fee and 15% for professional design fees. I hit that pretty fast. It's been a while. Any questions?
What's the scale on these drawings?
The scale of that, it's really kind of hard to tell. I believe it was like 20-ish scale when we printed it out.
This
Yes,
is
sir.
the one that provides the most parking, though.
This has about 88 spaces. Off the top of my head, I'm not entirely
The
sure.
least parking.
Yeah, the other two, we put a plus or minus in that legend on the parking lot. Yes, sir.
Yeah, would this replace the atrium? Would that replace the pollinator garden that's there now?
No, it would add on to the
It would add
pollinator
on to
garden.
it.
Yeah, we're playing off of what's already there and trying to make that more of a feature.
Okay.
So it creates kind of a photo op. Yes, sir.
Did you consider having the drop-off area on the long side with where the new parking spaces are, kind of between the City Hall building and this structure? Maybe because, I don't know, it just seems like that's going to be very busy if you have a bunch of people parking, a lot of pedestrians, and then people coming in and dropping off, when that entrance and the long drive between this and the City Hall building could be more conducive to getting cars in, drop off, and get out.
Absolutely. In the third concept, we flipped this whole thing around. So we'll hit that during the concept C. Yes, sir.
I don't, how many parking spaces are out there now? I don't know how to weigh this versus what, I know it's not a design plan, it's just a big piece of concrete, but
Right.
what is that part?
We estimated plus or minus 60 spaces existing, not including the foundation of the old fire station itself, which we think can house an additional, I think it was 8 to 10 spaces, if I'm not mistaken. So we're in line with giving
So
you.
you're not really giving up parking
Yes, sir.
by
Exactly.
adding the parking along the city?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Do you want to go ahead and present the other two concepts,
Sure.
please? And
Yes,
then we
please.
can
Yes, ma'am.
do a little comparing.
So this concept, you see a lot of similarities with the parking to the south. The major difference would be we're introducing open air pavilions that could be used for farmers market opportunities or some type of outdoor art fair. We are proposing the accessible parking spaces immediately south of those pavilions, so they're right next to the most intense use. We're offering up a courtyard space in between the two pavilions that could serve for outdoor vendors, while you may have some vendors under the canopy. And then you see the two parking lots on either side of the pavilions. The intent of that would be vendors being able to pull back a truck or a vehicle in, maybe sell off the back of a truck bed. Additionally, staging for any of the vendors that might need quick, immediate access. With this concept, we're actually increasing the parking by a total of plus or minus 128 spaces. So we're getting additional parking. A lot of the other features that you see with this site plan are similar to the other site plan and playing off the pollinator garden and renovating the existing restroom facility. All in, we estimate this concept to cost plus or minus $5 million. Again, there's a lot of unknown sort of, our design intent is based on the images that you see to the left with sort of that wooden structure, very linear. But you could spend a lot on these pavilions, you could spend very little. Yes, sir.
Just a ballpark, is in that scheme compared to the other one, is the enlarged parking lot mostly responsible for the additional million or two, or is it these open air pavilion structures?
So open air pavilion structures I can look back at our detail, but just based off what I recall, I think it's the open air pavilion. Parking isn't as expensive. Any other questions?
What's the largest cost that goes into that?
The largest cost is going to be actually converting the open ditch was pretty significant, and then just demolition and repaving. The pavilions overall, compared to overall paving and the site work, aren't as expensive as the.
Concrete work.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Flat out.
Was there any
That's the biggest
consideration with green parking, permeable surface?
Yes.
And how would that differ in cost between the concrete?
You're not going to save much It's more for
In this
reducing the runoff. In the aesthetics, yes, sir. And we'll see that all in the final concept C.
So people do love that, but I'm gonna be honest with you, it can become a maintenance
It-
concern. The
most
pavers
certainly.
start sinking at different rates. And
Yeah, most
pour
certainly.
concrete underneath it instead of on it. And then the grass starts getting above the pavers and the mowers start scalping the grass and stuff. I mean, it sounds cool, but I'm just telling you, 10 years from now, it ain't gonna look as good as it did the day you built it.
We find that the grass paved system works best for these large parking lots that, no one's parking out in the middle of nowhere, so you can kind of put those grass paved spaces in those
Ladies'
areas.
heels also sink right through it.
So this is concept C. This is the most intense concept of them all. Sir, to your point, we looked at flipping the entire site, and so I'll just kind of start with the main entrance depicted by letter A. In this concept, different from the other two concepts, we're literally combining the circulation of City Hall parking with our proposed parking here. And so as you come in through letter A, if you can all see that on the screen, we have a series, thank you, sir. We have 4 removable bollards. That space to the left serves as overflow parking. The idea is to kind of conceal it, make it feel like it's more of a park space, more of a green type parking. You can see how that would be depicted in the images to the bottom left, both left and right. So the idea would be to have synthetic turf in combination with pavers. So if you had a large event that required that to be used as parking, it could be used as parking. Otherwise, it could be used as courtyard space. The large building in the center is a large open air structure. It could house farmers markets, the arts and crafts markets, outdoor performances. We're proposing a raised stage in the center. To the northeast, we're proposing a restroom facility under the roof line. And then to the northwest and southwest, we're proposing storage. So this is just completely off the rails compared to the first two concepts. To the north of that, we have additional overflow parking similar to the parking that was described below the building. That would also stage food trucks in combination of the overflow parking. To the north of that, we're proposing the outdoor dining. You can see in this image the idea of the string lights and canopy trees to really kind of make that a nice private space, and as well as having the water feature in the center. In this concept, we propose to push the pollinator gardens a little bit to the north to kind of really enclose that outdoor dining space. With this concept, we estimate plus or minus 108 spaces. So again, a net plus from what you have today.
So concept A has the fewest
Yes,
parking
ma'am.
spaces?
Yes, ma'am. Concept
Okay.
B has the most, concept C is in the middle.
What's the cost on C?
On C, we're proposing plus or minus 9.4 million
Because of the covered area?
because of the cover area. That is the largest cost on this concept. But I think it's important to state too, the intent, you can fit a basketball court underneath this structure. So it could be used for recreational when you're not having some type of event.
The legend says 15 feet by 15 feet.
Yes, sir. It's hard to
vendor
see on the,
area.
sorry, I didn't mean to.
What is that describing?
It's hard to see on the screen, but we have dashed areas
The
to
little hatched
represent,
areas?
to represent vendor spaces. We were trying to see how many we could fit.
Is the restroom new?
The restroom would be new, yes, sir. Yeah, there you go. Great blow up. So those dashed lines represent potential vendor spaces.
So it's about 150 feet by 150, something like that?
Yes, sir.
So I see you have the delineation there in the drawing of 15-15, but that's just open slab. So you could shape it any size you
Yeah,
want.
absolutely. If you want to do 10 by 10, yeah.
If you want to play basketball in there, not that I need that, but you could do it. It's all
Yes.
flat.
Yes, yep, absolutely. The image to the left, it says the shed. That's pretty much what we're envisioning, a very large structure that's open air, house a variety of different types of programming.
Stephen, just for information, What's the date of the KFB meeting that this is going to be presented?
James, to confirm, it's January 27th? I'm sorry, the 24th, January 24th.
And since he's here, hi, how are you? Welcome. Nothing like putting you on the spot.
Oh, that's quite all right.
Now, are you planning, or are you anticipating KFB will come out with a choice for that evening?
Yes, it is on their agenda to
Okay.
receive a presentation from Casey, as you guys just did, and then to also vote on a recommendation on which of the 3 phases they'd like to see.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Now, I'm going to make an editorial statement. Am I on? I can't tell. Anyway, we funded the design. The rest of the project is KFB. And what is that? What you were going to say, Alton? Go ahead and say it.
I was just asking.
The rest of the project is KFB. And in my opinion, since it is KFB's project, I would really like to hear from KFB what their recommendation is as to which one they choose. And then if they need an opinion from us, I'm sure we would be glad to give one. But and I'm sticking my neck out here, but I think I know the feeling of the group. Since we're not the funding source, I think and it is KFB's project, I think it should be KFB's decision. That's just my feeling on this. Trey?
My initial thoughts, and I looked at these before.
Yeah.
I looked at them hard. And to be honest with you, I want to congratulate you. There's 3 great plans.
Thank you.
One of them's 3 times as much as the other. What my initial gut feel was, I can tell you what I like, but this is not my idea, and I'm not sure what the objective was.
Exactly.
So I'm not sure how my vote or our vote weighs the decision.
Correct.
So I agree that I would let KFB pick theirs, and if they want us to vote, I mean, we can vote on it. But I'm not sure what I'm trying to achieve here.
And
If I was going to
that's
have a
my
farmer's
opinion,
market,
too.
I love the covered concept at 3 times the money. I mean, I know if you're asking me, shade's really good in Texas. But it's going to depend on who's got to pay for this. So I don't know if I want to bet $9 million on some. Hey, y'all build the $9 million one. I mean, doesn't seem right to me.
Well, and we don't know where their funding sources are.
Well,
Part of our purpose in doing the 13,000 seed money, which, sorry, Casey, that's the kind of the way I looked at it, was for them to have the opportunity, once they make their decision, to go out for grants, other funding sources, and then move on to their project as they wanted to. But I think it was very generous of you, Casey, to come tonight and share this, since we did fund it. But I agree. I think we need to know what the purpose of the whole design was for KFB, what they want it to look like from the street, because if you just stand back and look, it's going to look very different if you have that huge covered area versus all the trees and greenery and whatever. So I just wanted to put that out there in front of you to consider.
yeah. And I want to add this and compliments to you. So I didn't attend any of these public meetings that you had, but I could read the list and I understand how it was going. And frankly, you came up with a plan, in my opinion, that addresses the parking, which was number 1. You got restrooms as number 2 votes, and you've addressed that. So I mean, there's nothing wrong with any of these plans. It's just going to boil down to what is the intent and how much you want to spend. And I don't know if we need to push it, because then we somewhat own it. And maybe they need to say, this is what we're trying to do, and this is how we want to get there. Or we can all just vote on it and kick it back over to them and see how it goes.
Well,
Go ahead.
my thought on that is, he who has the goal makes the rules. And it's really not our decision, but I do appreciate very much the consideration to us to allow us to at least look at it and consider it. And when it comes to opinions, it reminds me of what my dad said: I'm an expert in nothing, but I have an opinion about everything.
Well, and one of the big compliments that I would like to extend is when we were at a city council meeting, one of the big issues was the parking. But with Plan B, you almost double what's out there right now. And so that is a huge accomplishment. Well done.
Thank you.
Bubba?
Let's remember back whenever KFB came to us and asked for some seed money to do a design. And we talked about it. We've been through down that road before with getting the grants, getting our projects underway. And so that's what we did. This is KFB's project. It's not ours. This is going to sound harsh, but if we had an opinion, we should have gone to one of the 3 sessions that they had and made our opinions known. Again, thank you so much for including us on that. We got a little bit in the stake here. I understand that, but it's KFB's decision what they want to do,
Correct.
and that's. I just want to remind everybody why we got involved in this to begin with. That was to help KFB out. That's it.
Now,
Pat? Excuse me, Paul. Go ahead.
That's kind of what I was going to say, since it didn't originate here, you have those are for it, those are against it, and I'm sure they'll blame us if anything goes wrong, or they don't like the decision that's out there, and, but I mean, I'm all for it. I'm all for the project, but since it didn't originate here, yeah, I feel the way that most of us up here do, that I just don't agree with voting on one particular design.
It reminds me of a national vote. We're going to vote on, do we want to spend $3 million, $5 million, $9 million, but we're not going to pay for it. and so it just doesn't seem right. I mean, whoever's going to carry the burden of the thing, I think, should be able to pick their choice and then see if they get support from other groups. It just seems fair.
But we greatly appreciate I'm
it's-
sorry, Alton.
They're all great.
I'm just glad that we did put the money up.
Me
Yeah,
too.
no, that was the right thing to do.
Because when it turns out great, we can take credit for it.
Pat, you wanted to make a comment.
I concur with what everyone else has said, and I always bring our plan to remind you we have plenty of projects for this group and its successors.
To be honest, I knew Pat was going to whip that plan out, and that's why I went the way I did.
Good, Trey, because someday he may resort to hitting you with it. So, Stephen, I'm hearing from the group that we're not going to take any action on this.
Yes, ma'am.
And I appreciate the opportunity to have it presented to us. Is there anything else you need from us?
No, ma'am. What I would like to point out, some of this is have already been mentioned, that KFB will meet later in January, and it has been mentioned both by Casey and then by a couple of members of the group that there's currently, and this is more for any audience at home that maybe watch us on YouTube or cable later. Both of them. It's myself and Katie, quite honestly. So there is not currently a funding mechanism for any project that's potentially chosen. As was well stated amongst the group, this was more for a seed money and for potential grants or donors or other mechanisms later. And then also, not that there's going to be any recommendation given today, but any recommendation in the future, whether by KFB or another group, it does not guarantee that any one of these concepts will be funded or acted upon in the future. That was obviously the goal of KFB when they came in, but that's going to be up to city council, future city councils, depending on how it works out.
Yeah, I just want to add, I don't mean by any measure, us not voting on this, that we're condemning this project.
Oh.
And we did fund the initial study, which turned out for us to be a wonderful thing, that we found some grant money for our project. And I don't know what's out there for these guys, but again, I mean, are they going to try to raise $3 million or $9 million? This is a massive difference. And so my guess is it's going to depend on if they can find grant money.
I would just like to say thank you, Casey, for coming in and give us the rundown.
Definitely, and honoring
And the hard
us
work.
with this.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
They're
Thanks, guys.
very good, and we wish KFB good luck on their project.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
So relay that to them, please. Any other comments or work we need to do on 4A? Hearing none, let's go to 5A. Stephen, to receive and discuss the text dot curbs, ramps, sidewalks, and traffic signals project reports.
Yes, ma'am. Just to be brief, I know it has been since October since we've met and gone over some of this. There has not been a whole lot of work since October out along FM 518. I have spoke with TxDOT this week as recently as yesterday. They've chosen to keep the brick pavers. There was some question previously, if you recall. There was a question previously back in October of whether or not some of the pavers would come out and be replaced with stamped concrete, red stamped concrete to look like brick. After consideration and some meetings with staff, they determined to keep the brick pavers that are currently in place and have the contractor fix any deficiencies that may be out there and continue that work on. TxDOT has provided a preliminary punch list for the project and sent that on to the contractor. The traffic signals, which is a different company than the company that is doing the pavers and the curb ramps. And I'll try to spell this out as easy as I possibly can. The signals are up and the signals are complete. TxDOT requested that those signals be interconnected with some fiber network. In order to get that done, they had to make the request to the contractor. The contractor then has to put together a plan and send that plan back to TxDOT for review. For an approval of the change order. It is currently with TxDOT undergoing review. So as soon as it gets complete, they look to turn loose the folks for the traffic signals.
Is that gonna be overhead or underground interconnect?
My understanding is that it's underground.
Underground? I hope so.
And
Yeah, we don't need any
it
more
kind
wires.
that kind of kills what we're going after here. And the good news is the contractor for the sidewalks and the curb ramps and the pavers, they look to be back per TxDOT before the end of January. So we should see some work start to take back up before the end of the month.
Stephen, on the paver thing, was that driven by cost?
No, sir. Initially, there was some areas of the pavers that had deficiencies where they had started to move or shift. When they did the preliminary walkthrough, they started having discussions on how best to address it. One of these methods is to just use a stamped concrete, so it becomes leveled just like any other concrete would. You stamp it, you color it to look like brick. Each one of these has its own has its own issues and concerns. Sometimes, after talking with staff, whose main concern was by pouring new concrete, you would basically shift that outside ribbon or shift the sidewalk that's currently there and cause issues in the future. TxDOT has come back and decided that they're going to stick with the pavers.
Pat, Dr. McGinnis?
Yes, who foots the bill for the data interconnection? Does that come from TxDOT?
TxDOT, yes, sir.
Good.
Any other questions?
I just wish my wife was as fiduciary responsible as Mr. McGinnis is.
No comment. Because I can see your wife enjoying the other way. Any other comments on 5A? Moving to 5B, we are asked to receive and discuss the FM 518 illumination project.
So again, briefly, in October, we had discussed some conflicts with the taller 32-foot poles, along with high-energy power lines that are on the, I guess that is the east side of FM 518. The group kind of knew about some of these conflicts and that there was going to have to be some modification. As we went through working with our consultants, the main goal here was to keep everything uniform. We had talked in October that, and the group kind of confirmed here that we did not want a hodgepodge of different heights. We didn't want different lighting levels as we moved down FM 518. So in working with every consultant that we possibly could, along with TNMP, we have come up with a preferred, the staff's preferred, mind you, option. This is, I would like to, I know he's not here, but Hill, our director of engineering, has done amazing work working with some of these folks trying to get different schematics put together so we could take a look. And I'll just use the definition or the terms that are being used by our consultants. What we recommend is a decrease in the pole height and the installation of an upswept arm modification to alleviate the conflicts. And I do have a picture that I can show. And I sent these out earlier today. If you didn't get a chance to look at it, I apologize. As you can see, this is revision F. So we have been working on this for a little bit. This is the easiest way to kind of depict what you would see. If you recall this portion here, this is the upswept arm. This used to very much mimic this kind of cantilevered option here. This is twofold. For what this does is it eliminates some of the height of the pole to keep us out of the conflict with the power lines, the overhead power lines. But then it also gives us this upsweep out into the street area where we can then gain a little bit of height for our fixture. So we still have a light that extends over the street and provides that illumination, but we're no longer in conflict with the overhead power lines. The height of these poles has been decreased. The pole itself is, I believe, let me double check, 18 feet.
5/16.
And the cantilever takes that to about 20 feet tall out over the street. And then you would have your fixture, and that fixture hangs, you would be anywhere between, I think it was 17 and 18 feet. More than enough for vehicle traffic, more than enough for to eliminate any concerns or conflicts with traffic on FM 518.
That is opposed to the 32-foot that we were originally.
That's correct. And the 32-foot, even just with the cantilever out, the 32-foot by itself with that height got us into conflict significantly on the east side of FM 518. The area that I believe it's 10 feet that you have to be away from those power lines, it's very difficult for multiple reasons. Either the placement of the pole per the original plan, or some of the limitations with some of the TNMP poles have a little bit of a lean to them. And so you just kind of, was deemed the best option to get everything in place, keep it uniform, and illuminate both the street and the pedestrians.
All the way the same height, right?
All the way the same height, yes, sir.
Basically, what he's saying here, when we contacted Gandy, he used illumination plan that would be an even, consistent lighting pattern at 32 feet. And basically what we're doing here, we're reducing the pole height and the luminaire height, which means the lighting pattern completely changed. So in other words, there'll be dark spots in between. It won't be an even and consistent lighting. What we're trying to do is raise that luminaire height a little higher to spread out the lighting a little more. So basically, it's not going to be the same lighting plan that he came up with.
What
It'll be
kind of
different.
gaps are we talking about between lighting?
We don't know. He's got to run run it through his illumination program again to kind of see what it's going to look like, what the footprint will look like. So basically, that's how it affects. So we're going to keep the same number of fixtures. They're going to be shorter, and the lighting won't be as consistent as it would have been at a 32-foot mounting height.
And I will, sorry.
At one of our meetings, didn't someone suggest the lower height the pole anyway for some other reasons other than?
Yeah, I think that was Paul.
I just remember saying, as opposed
Thank you,
to,
Paul.
yeah, instead of a stadium light, we got down to a street light.
And that's tall enough for any DOT requirements for high loads or anything?
Yes, sir. For the preliminary conversations we've had with TxDOT, they're okay with the height. How some of the approvals have gone for this project, we're going to get that in writing and to a point where we know we can move forward.
I've seen some really tall loads go up 528 and then none down 518.
Yes, sir. And you may recall it's been probably 18 months to 2 years ago now. We had a heavy load come down FM 518. We've made specific requests to TxDOT, not just for this project, but for example, the trees over at French Church.
Yeah.
They hang out into the right of way. We've made a request to them to not bring down heavy loads down FM 518 as it is.
Okay.
So no permitting for that kind of a load down?
We do not control the permitting.
TxDOT
TxDOT
does.
does, but we have made very specific requests to keep them off FM 518. It's very high traffic volume, especially at specific times during the day. And then we do have all of the infrastructure and the spans. The intent, I just want to point out, is to keep the same number of poles in the same locations if it's possible. I'd like to thank Paul for visiting with me regarding the new poles and how the lighting schematic needs to work. And we have plans to meet with Mr. Gandy to discuss this and to see if we can accomplish it with the exact same locations.
Thank you, Paul, very much.
You're welcome.
How high is that light fixture off of the ground? I can't read that. I'm blind.
Well, the pole is at 18, and that's another 2 feet. It's all about 20 feet.
20 feet off the ground?
My only concern was, or one of my concerns was the banner height.
Mhm.
With a lower pole like that, as you can see, it hangs below or above the luminaire. And I'm not sure if that's gonna affect the sidewalk lighting or not. So that's something we're gonna look at as well.
Good point, thank you for noticing that.
Question.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Paul, can they change the distribution or the spread of the light?
That's one of the questions I talked to Stephen about. It depends on what type of light. You have different type of, they call it a light type, which projects a pattern. I would think the sidewalk light would be a type 5 light, which is a circle, basically a circle pattern. Roadway luminaires are typically type 2, which is more of an elliptical pattern cast toward the street. So yeah, that is something they can look at. If they can move that from a type 3 to a type 2, that would project it more long linear than a circle. So yeah, that's something we're gonna ask the lighting designer to look at.
Good. Do you think those answers to those questions will be available by next month? By
That
our
is
next meeting?
that is my intent. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Big thanks to the staff for getting this designed. And Stephen did share with me that there were others that were presented that were, let's just say, not one of our choices. So, thank you, Stephen, for watching out for us. Moving now to 5C, which is to receive and discuss the Friendswood Downtown Economic Development Corporation Financial Report for December 2022.
Yes, ma'am. The beginning fund balance for December of 2022 is $2,647,562, with a healthy revenue of $67,765. Just to remind the group that revenue for December 2022 is calculated from the dollars spent in November. So at the next month's meeting, we should have what was spent in December, and hopefully by way of what November brought in, it'll be very nice. Some of the expenditures for December 2022, $43,740, along with the city staff's funding of $1,333, with a fund balance ending this is June, but it's for December 2022 of $2,670,254.
Very nice. We all remember, don't we, gentlemen? And that's a lot. Thank you. Comments or questions? Anybody?
I do. Pat probably knows this, but what are the expenditures that were totaling $43,000? What were they for?
If I'm trying to recall off the top of my head, we did have the Christmas. No,
I hope you enjoyed it.
we had some expenditures with Pfeiffer and Sons, who's the contractor for the lighting, to get them started, and there was, I believe, an outstanding invoice for HDR, who was the electrical engineer who did the work for the downtown lighting itself.
I'll comment, because I like money. That revenue, and I assume that captured some of maybe Christmas spending and all, but I think that's the highest number I've seen. And I think the great news for the town is that we got 1/8 of a cent, and the city would have gotten the rest. So this had to help the city's budget as well. If it helped ours that much, it had to be cross-sectional, and that's a good thing for the town.
Yes, sir. And this December 2022, this number is from the sales tax collected from November. So at the February meeting, we should have the numbers for what was collected in December itself. So if this is healthy in November, hopefully December is just as healthy, if not more.
Excellent. Any other comments or questions? We have completed our agenda, gentlemen. We are to number 6, which is to adjourn. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second? We have a motion and a second. Mr. Hill, second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.